Hello, I'm Abe Madcourt, publisher and executive editor of Sports Business Journal. Thank you for joining us for the final episode of our 2024 SBJ All-In Digital Series. With 2024 coming to a close, we wanted to look back at the year and spotlight some interesting initiatives that professional teams and leagues have deployed to engage with today's fans and attract the next generation of diverse supporters. We have a great panel of professionals joining us today who have activated these initiatives and can provide feedback and insight on their learnings. Also, my colleague Lori Fuller, who leads our All-In programming, and I really want to thank our advisory group for their time and their counsel in helping us identify compelling programming for this series. You can see the members of the advisory group by clicking the corresponding button on the digital platform's homepage. You know, I'm excited for today's episode, reaching diverse audiences with innovative fan engagement initiatives. Our moderator is Justin Morrow. He was a highly accomplished MLS player for 12 seasons, and he is now the head of sports partnerships and programs for the University of Southern California's Race and Equity Center. Justin's been a great friend to SBJ, and we appreciate him leading this discussion. Justin, over to you.
Hey, thanks for that wonderful introduction. And hi, everyone. I'm Justin Morrow. I'm head of sports partnerships and programs at the USC Race and Equity Center, where we help support with diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives across the youth, collegiate, and professional sports landscape. I'm so excited to moderate this conversation with you all today. It's all about fan engagement today, engaging diverse audiences. These leaders that you see here in front of you, these incredible leaders that we have as panelists, have been doing that in new and innovative ways. We all know professional sports, the sports industry, it's fast-paced, but it feels like in 2024, it was even faster. We're already into December. Incredible. Some of the highlights that we've seen is the continued expansion of women's sports, the NWSL and the WNBA hitting record viewership and attendance this year. The increased globalization of men's professional sports, NFL playing more games outside of North America than ever before. The summer tournaments, who could forget Paris, the Olympics and the Paralympics, that gave us so much excitement. Copa America, the international soccer tournament, was hosted all across the United States this summer. We've also seen the opening of some amazing new venues, Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, the new home of the Los Angeles Clippers, and KPKC Stadium in Kansas City, the new home of the Kansas City Current. They just hosted the NWSL Championship. It really is amazing the amount of work that gets done in our industry. It makes your head swirl if you're trying to cover it all. But what never gets lost in all of it is the fans. So what we want to do here today is just take a moment to slow down, to reflect on all the amazing things that have been done in this area over the year. These initiatives that you're going to hear about, they're pulling in new diverse fans and growing our sport inclusively. These initiatives, they happened all this year. Some of them are new, some of them are recurring, but they were all led by these amazing panelists that you see here in front of you today. So let me go ahead and introduce them really quickly. First up is Imani McCormick. As a DEI and cultural strategist for the Minnesota Vikings, Imani leads initiatives shaping people development, workplace equity programs, community engagement, and multicultural marketing. Her vision has brought to life multiple summits aimed at expanding career opportunity and transparency. She amplifies local businesses and artists through community-focused events and spearheads internal networks that foster meaningful engagement and inclusion. Thanks for being with us today, Imani. Next up, we have Mark Frazier. Mark played 14 years of professional hockey, and following that, he was hired by the Toronto Maple Leafs to create the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Department. His role of Director of Culture and Inclusion is the first among NHL clubs, and he works with players, staff, and across the various business units to create an inclusive hockey culture. I got to spend some time with Mark when I was in the front office with Toronto FC in Toronto, and Mark does some incredible work. I'm excited for you all to hear about that today. Thanks, Mark. Next up, Amber Scott. As social responsibility program manager, Amber manages social justice and inclusion and civic engagement efforts for the NBA. Her work helps to inspire players, fans, and employees to appreciate the importance of social justice and positively act to impact systemic change. Her work across the league's civic engagement initiatives help drive increased participation in American democracy during the presidential and midterm elections and beyond. Thanks for joining us, Amber. And last but not least, Misha Hurd. Misha Hurd serves as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Major League Baseball, where she oversees efforts to create a culture of belonging for the league, its employees, and its constituents, both on and off the field. For the past 2 years, her work has focused on fostering meaningful experiences for MLB's employees and fans while expanding the league's appeal to underrepresented community groups and diverse partners. Thanks, Misha. All right, so that is enough of me. What we want to do now is turn it over to our wonderful panelists to describe these amazing initiatives that they've cultured, created, and executed. And first up is going to be Amani McCormick with the Minnesota Vikings. So take it away, Amani.
Thank you for the introduction, Justin. It's great to be here with you all today. Again, I'm Imani McCormick. I'm a diversity, equity, inclusion, and culture strategist with the Minnesota Vikings. My role focuses on driving cultural transformation, leading multicultural marketing initiatives that elevate our audience as well as our team. One of the most impactful projects that I had the chance to work on, which was also my first big initiative when I joined the team in spring of 2023, was Creators of Color. So the Vikings co-hosted the 3rd annual Creators of Color Empowerment Summit in partnership with the Minnesota Twins, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Minnesota Lynx. Creators of Color is a year-round enablement initiative that focuses on amplifying the talent of 30 sports creatives and content creators that identify as Black, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian, or people of color between the ages of 21 and 33. What's really interesting is that 40% of North American sports fans identify as BIPOC, but represent less than 12% of the creative landscape. So what our focus really was on is how can we create unique opportunities to invest in that talent, grow the talent, and ensure that their stories are being heard so we can also grow new audiences. What was really exciting about kind of this programming was curating panels and workshops that featured executives, industry leaders, community leaders, and really leaning into what Minnesota as a whole has to offer, being more of a mid-sized sports market. We focus on athlete partnerships, player marketing, immersive fan engagement, branding, and storytelling. And we even did a content day here on site with the Minnesota Vikings Entertainment Network, giving access to these creators to use our incredible facilities and have a really hands-on experience. What I also loved is that, we don't understand maybe the stories or the experiences of these content creators and storytellers. So while they're often behind the camera, we had the opportunity to have them tell their own stories. So they were able to make content on site here. This program and similar programs that I've put on is incredibly important because it really underscores the critical role of diverse perspectives for emerging talent and connecting with decision makers who can recognize and invest in these creatives. It's not only fostering individual growth, but it's driving innovation and expanding our audience reach within a multicultural market. And in addition to putting on the summit, I had the chance to work with Malia Pearson, who is our lifestyle content producer and who happened to also be a Creators of Color honoree in that class. With that, we decided to work on a Black History Month initiative that leaned into the national theme of African Americans in the arts. So we partnered with 4 Black local artists who really embodied the Twin Cities and could allow us to kind of reach a new audience within our fan market as well. So they created Vikings-inspired artwork, and it was featured across our social channels, our website. We created downloadable wallpapers, and we also told the stories of each of these artists. The initiative really received positive fan sentiment and feedback, particularly from Black fans who felt seen and represented. And not only just the current players that we have, but the history of the Minnesota Vikings and Minnesota as a whole. And fans across the board really appreciated the creativity and novelty of the work that we created. And to take it another step further, we really wanted to test this project's potential. So we created staff merchandise. This included posters, postcards, and shirts that featured the artwork. If you walk into our facility, you'll see almost on everyone's desk a poster that features art from all 4 artists. This also led to 2 of the artists from the Black History Month initiative being selected for a live art activation, one that took place at training camp, so fans could come on site and see a live drawing taking place and get autographed art by the artist. And then we also had one of the artists participate in our Ring of Honor ceremony, creating an image of Bobby Bryant. The success of this project overall really inspired multiple partnerships. We also did one for Pride Month that featured a local LGBTQ artist who also is Indigenous, and we did a art giveaway on site and live art experience at Twin Cities Pride. Overall, the more initiatives and summits that we're able to put on allows us to celebrate cultural diversity within our own community, but well beyond as well, and fostering innovation that can translate into opportunity and exposure.
Thanks, Amani. Thanks for sharing. Really, really wonderful work. Actually, very complex. A lot of moving parts here. I want to ask one question before we
Absolutely.
move on to Mark. Why have you chosen the arts? Why have the Vikings chosen the arts to lean into? You know, you have the Creators of Color Summit, which is like social media, digital content, but then you have the Black History Month initiative that you lean to as well. And it seemed like there was a very focused and intentional play to move into the arts here. And talk to me about that a little bit.
So initially, it really did start as for Black History Month, with it being the first time I was organizing this for the Vikings. I wanted to lean into the national theme because it's something that connects us well beyond just our current fan base. This is something that the entire Black community in Minnesota is celebrating, that people are celebrating nationally. And it was really important to me that I built that connection. But also being new to the Twin Cities, one thing I really love is just the amount of art and culture that is here. And I mean, you walk around downtown, you see murals of Prince, and it's really just a unique experience to have. And with Minnesota being kind of this flyover state, I wanted to make sure that we were taking the talent that we have here and giving them a platform because we're visible internationally. And so for us to create different art or projects or tell the stories of the different creators with a variety of mediums, it really resonated with me, but also our fans as well, because they could see themselves in the work. And as we do things for Pride or Women's History Month, and not even just these one-off initiatives, but doing things year round, it's really important that people can see themselves in this work. And sports isn't one-dimensional. Our athletes aren't one-dimensional. Our front office isn't one-dimensional. So leaning into the different backgrounds and skill sets and passion areas that they have.
I love that. As a former athlete myself, I'm like, yes, not one dimensional. You got that. You got
Multi-hyphenate, come on.
that right. And I can attest to the artwork all across Minnesota as well. I think MLS hosted All-Star there in 2022, and I joined, participated, fantastic. So I think you hit the nail on the head there. What really well done. Speaking of former athletes, let's pass it over to Mark with the Maple Leafs to tell us about NHL All-Star this year and the merchandise and the amazing initiative that he created there. Over to you, Mark.
I appreciate that, Justin, and thank you, Amani. Yeah, for the NHL All-Star Weekend last year was hosted here in Toronto, which is anytime ourselves or any of our other pro teams or any of the pro teams in North America get to host an All-Star game, it's obviously a special opportunity. And where the game or the weekend itself, particularly in the NHL, had been, is it needed to get picked up a little bit. You know, it had fallen flat, I think, in previous years with some of the feedback. And one of the things that in the first meeting we had as an executive group and with Maple Leafs front office, when it was announced that we'd be getting it, is For myself, I wanted to be able to make sure we were showcasing the city's diversity. Obviously, hockey, and being a former NHL player myself, it's not recognized as a very diverse institution often. And Toronto happens to be the most diverse city in the world. So it was important for me to make sure that from fans, their players, partnerships, whomever was showing up that weekend to celebrate hockey, that they were leaving to think or feeling like, oh, that's what hockey in Toronto looks like. I really didn't know. We're proud of the multiculturalism and the diversity that exists here, and our game is just one more opportunity to try to showcase that. And so, to Justin, you had just made a comment, and Amani as well, as sort of not being the one-dimensional athlete. And I love to say the slogan, more than an athlete. And that's something that I always found within myself, and in that became friends with a local individual, a Black fashion designer and creator named Adrian Atchison, who's the founder of Two Black Guys, whose entire motto of his early 90s clothing apparel that came from sort of Spike Lee, Malcolm X inspiration of Black excellence. It was, we're going to be unapologetically Black. And that was something that I connected to. But to be frank, in my experiences in hockey, a lot of my experiences were positive, and I could very much be myself. And then there was moments where I certainly couldn't be. And you felt you had to apologize a lot for who you were, how you looked or represented, or the hairstyles you had, or whatever made you different. And it wasn't felt like you were conforming. And so, speaking to Adrian, we've been thinking of how can we could do a collab for a while. A company called Two Black Guys, and that's TOO. So it's very, what am I too black for you? It's sort of like everything sort of is built off of. That's not really hockey, and that's certainly not the Toronto Maple Leafs at first. And so I told him I got an idea, the NHL All-Stars coming. He's like, how are we going to do this? I said, well, it kicks off February 1st. So I don't think they can say no to us, because it's the kickoff of Black History Month. And the way we were able to connect it to the team and the organization, a very, over 100-year-old franchise, we represent less than 1% of the alumni group, but there's 8 Black alumni with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And within that, the representation of Black excellence is Val James, who's the first African-American to play in the NHL. Grant Fuhr, who's the first Black everything in hockey for the Black All-Star, Stanley Cup champion, Hall of Famer. There's only been 2 Black All-Star MVPs, and Grant's one of them. And our most recent Black alumni, Wayne Simmons, also from Toronto, was the other. We had Stanley Cup champions and as well in Jabal Mayer. So there's just excellence wrapped all throughout this group. And a lot of the firsts, and a lot of us share the same stories and experiences. And the most beautiful thing of what we were able to do is, in the marketing and bringing everyone together and leveraging the stories of these 8 alumni and their experiences of, for one, falling in love with the game, what it was like being Black in hockey, and then what it meant to be a Maple Leaf, Original Six, one of the most storied organizations in hockey, and tying a lot of that in one of the most powerful sets I've ever been on, where grown men are unpacking things and becoming emotional and realizing this has been buried for years, if not decades. And what that allowed was for a really important story to come out. And the retail and the apparel capsule was really just a vehicle to shed a light on the diversity that exists in our game, the deep history of Black excellence that exists in the game, and what it looks like to also be Black and playing hockey in Toronto. And we did a collaboration with Mitchell and Ness. From the moment we had all first met each other, it was instantaneously recognizing within the first few minutes that first 10 minutes of me meeting Grant Fuhr, I recognized that he understands me as a hockey player more than some of my closest friends or teammates do. And we had just met each other, but our experiences were the same. And Adrian's a creative designer who's worked with OVO and Hudson's Bay and Canada Goose and the Roots. And his ability to capture what was a celebration of Black culture and the intersections of Black culture in hockey. We had from hats. In Canada, we call them toques, but beanies, winter knit hats, t-shirts, hoodies, crew necks. But the statement piece was this black jersey. And again, Toronto, a very historic organization, Original Six. We don't typically change things up much when it comes to colorways and all that, where it is what it is. It was an all black everything, all black jersey with the name bar, 2 black on the back. The 8 was the number. And there's subtle details that I probably still need to wait a few more years before I release some of the nuggets so I don't get myself in trouble. What Adrian was secretly hiding in some of these designs. But it was amazing. And the feeling of when we had this pop-up, and we did it in a barbershop and it had a retail space. And we had through a local charity and another Black alumni who's from the city of Toronto, Hockey Equality. We had about 25 13-year-old competitive elite AAA Black hockey players and their parents come to do a meet and greet with the alumni beforehand. And these young individuals are seeing us and seeing Black alumni from the NHL and from the Maple Leafs, signing autographs, asking questions. We had a sneaker cleaning station. We had merchandise lined up around in the retail space. Kids were getting fades and getting their hair braided. And as a biracial hockey player, I'm one who my mom was like, I don't know what to do with this kid's hair. We got you. The kids were getting touched up and they got to design their own Mitchell and Ness hats with their own specific decals on it. And then we had the kickoff party afterwards, and partners came, and league and NBA folk and culture creators and folks in the music and fashion industry. And one of the highlights for me was when you get to be in this space and you do something that speaks in ways where folks who have been here for decades come up and say, we've never seen this before. The power of that. There was resistance in many ways along the journey of some of the creatives we were trying to use, or some of the messaging, having a capsule called No Apologies, and tying that into our individual stories of, yes, we love this sport, but it didn't perhaps always love us, but we're now celebrating the excellence that exists within the Black community, specific in the hockey community. And to be honest, what I thought was going to be a bringing of the two worlds together, I recognize as I look around the room and I saw Black Hall of Famers and Stanley Cup champions and league executives and community coaches and TV personalities. And I recognize this is not a blending of the two. This is just spotlighting on what's always been here. We're just getting to let our hair down in a particular way where we haven't been able to before. Typically, you know, with the privilege I have in my role here, and when we get to do moments like this, always try to bring a philanthropic approach as well. So we use 20% of the proceeds to go specifically to Black community programming and one of our community partners in Black Aces Against All Odds as well. So from having the youth element and making sure they could see the representation in front of them, to doing things that was a hockey event, but you're still able to get touched up to get a fade or your hair braided or clean your sneakers, design a hat, you know, bring your personality into the fashion you want to wear too. And, you know, when you have Jamaican patties flying around and some hip hop playing and everyone's just having a good time, All-Star was an amazing 4 or 5 days. But it was for me, it was folks coming up and saying it was still that night was the night for me, because it just, you know, there was no conforming. We feel like we just got to be us in a way we haven't been able to be before. And again, it was spotlighting a culture and an influence on the game that has actually been here for a very long time. It was truly, I played 14 years pro. It was the highlight of my career to be able to do something like that and to feel not just a celebration of the Black excellence, but to be the one to have a Black Hall of Famer come to you and say, I've never been celebrated that way. Was truly, you know, lifetime fulfilling for myself. And to be honest, we kicked the door down. We were able to show that, you know, this works. The retail from the sales did a great job. The content was amazing that came out of it, trying to actually bring everyone back for a little bit of a phase 2 this year. But it was really something that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And I'm glad that we were able to involve community, youth, and really bring a presence and a vibe and show that even through something as simple as fashion and apparel, we can help grow the game and celebrate the diversity that exists within our sport and our city.
Man, big ups to you for pulling off a major event and collaboration like that. You know, we're talking about fan engagement today. I know when you first told me this story, you mentioned how well the capsule sold as well. You want to talk about that real quickly? I know you already talked about just the engagement at the party and how lively it was, bringing in new audiences that might not have been a part of an NHL All-Star before and seeing a space like that, but the capsule did really well as well.
Yeah, it did. And again, I think it's, part of my goal is, in growing the game and engaging with new demographics of fans. And hockey's like some other sports, but it might have its challenges, its cost and social economic challenges. And sometimes it doesn't always have to be putting a stick in a young boy or girl's hands to say, you can play. Sometimes it's just walking by a shop window and seeing yourself represented in a brand, seeing yourself represented. And sometimes for myself, Justin, I've said I find it hard sometimes for me to be a company man because I don't dress like a hockey dad, so just the ability to present to our community, to the city, and to people, shopping online who are fans of hockey or the Maple Leafs, from diverse backgrounds who just want to, look and feel a certain way that speaks to our street culture, urban culture, just that everyday feel, to be honest. But to be able to see a team brand reaching out intentionally, built with content creators who look like us, clothing designers who look like us, and through the lens and experiences of athletes who look like us. We do lots of work in the community when it comes to growing the game and playing with kids and empowering them to feel seen and a part of this game. But I think that we showed success through the sales as well, and how it was consumed and the response from the fans. We know that Leafs Nation is strong and it's big, and not everyone maybe gets the opportunity to come into our arena for a game, but this is an opportunity for us to go out and reach them and say, we see you and we want you to feel like you are seen and represented and your stories are known to us in this team brand. And we had success with that. And again, it was a wonderful way to leverage these stories, but the vehicle of retail is a great way to be able to have and not just for the Black community, to be honest, but for a wide range of white fans as well as diverse fans and BIPOC fans to just feel a little cooler, a little hipper in their team swag, I think is important as well.
Well, again, amazing job, Mark. Really leading the way, making hockey more inclusive. He is a member of the NHL Players Inclusion Coalition as well, using your voice strong there. So big ups on you. Congrats. We're going to move over now to Amber. Amber has been leading the HBCU Classic for a number of years now. She's going to give you a taste of the sights and sounds of NBA All-Star and everything that's been happening there.
Great. Thank you, Justin, and thank you, Amani and Mark, for sharing. Mark, I do want to underscore one thing you said in terms of, the Black excellence was already there. The impact was already there, right? You were just underscoring it and providing more light to something that's already had tremendous impact. So that's something that really resonated with me and something I'll actually speak about as well. But it's a pleasure to be here, Amber Scott. I've been on the social responsibility team at the league for 3 seasons. And as Justin mentioned, I had the honor of being one of the colleagues on our team to help found the NBA HBCU Classic. So I'll just give some history there and then go into, how do we think about this program and what are some of the visions that we have moving forward. So the season is 2021-2022. In the fall of 21, we had this concept of the HBCU Classic, and we had to work fast and furiously that fall to launch it during All-Star 2022. And before I get into the specifics of the game, I think it's important to realize that the commitment that the NBA has to HBCUs isn't something that was new in the 2022 season. Rather, it really dates back decades. So we were pivotal in, some of the foundings of Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We have a long-standing relationship of the United Negro College Fund. And so our mission has always been to help provide support and make sure that HBCUs are organically and authentically a part of our business. And then as we think about, the overall landscape and the impact of HBCUs, we really started from scratch and said, all right, so why are we doing this? And one of the reasons is because HBCUs account for about 20% they produce about 20% of the country's Black graduates, but only 3% of colleges in the US are HBCU institutions. And so we're like, all right, we need to make sure we are supporting and providing pathways to spread the word about HBCUs, to encourage students to attend, but also to give opportunities for current HBCU students to have that all-star experience. So we decided to come up with the HBCU Classic, and it started as a game, right? And so the first game was during All-Star 2022. We had a matchup between Howard and Morgan State University, and that was a MEAC matchup, and it was absolutely phenomenal in Cleveland. I always say I never would have thought that we would be swag surfing at an event. That was my highlight. Like, I can't believe I'm at work doing the swag surf. This is awesome. And while that was truly, truly amazing, I think, there's a few things that are happening here. So yes, it's about the on-court play. It's a competitive game. We always ensure that the teams who are competing, they're working hand in hand with their respective conference to make sure that it is an actual conference matchup. It's a game that counts. So we always say it is the most competitive game of All-Star Weekend. And then another thing about the conference matchup is, we're proud to say that we have worked with all major HBCU conferences. So we had a chance to start with the MEAC. We worked with the SWAC, the CIAA during this past All-Star. And then in 2025, we are already working with the SIAC, so the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and the matchup will be Tuskegee versus Morehouse College. So that's one thing that's happening with this game. So that's the on-court play. But then we've also been really intentional about making sure we're building out the programs that are happening around the game itself, what's happening off the court. So that shoulder programming has grown tremendously over the past few years. So we're really intentional about bringing in both retired and current NBA players to meet with the student athletes, providing that one-on-one mentorship. What should you expect, as you finish out your collegiate career? What are some things you should be thinking about as you aspire for a professional career? But then we're also making sure we're working with all the students who are coming to our All-Star Weekend for the game. So it's not just the student athletes who are competing. We bring in the band, the cheers, the dance teams. There are interns who come from these institutions. And so we have a career development session that takes place on Sunday after the game, which is actually on Saturday. So that's a time for NBA executives to come meet one-on-one with these students, review resumes, have real conversations, right? About what does interview prep look like? What does what does presentation prep look like? What are some careers that you may not be aware of that I can help shed some insight on? So that career programming is happening. And then we also have interns who come to work throughout the weekend. So about 12 different departments host interns from different HBCU institutions. We have a student art showcase where we actually commission about 10 students from various schools to come and design the artwork that you see on the concourse, or that might be part of partner gifting. So you see a lot in addition to the game. And then the last piece I'll say is just the consistency of programming is key here. So we started during All-Star of 2022. Let's be honest, we know that there are different initiatives, especially as we think about, the work that we're all doing across the impact space, right? That may ebb and flow, but really for us, it's grown. And, we've made a commitment to make sure that this is a tentpole game that's not only during All-Star Weekend, but the relationship with all the schools who participate continues beyond that. So we have coaches, trainers, who actually come and participate in NBA Combine, right, from each of those schools in May. So you're not just going to All-Star Weekend, you develop a relationship with the NBA family that spans beyond February. We have tons of students who've participated in the HBCU Classic who've gone on to participate in our HBCU Fellowship Program in the summer. So that's our internship program. So it's all about, yes, on-court play, but more importantly, right, we're committed to how are we helping to develop these young people off the court develop them holistically, professionally from a career standpoint, giving opportunities for them to shine in terms of displaying their creative impact, and having fun while at it, and swag surfing, and doing all the things that we love. And we know, you know, especially Black culture has an impact on our sport, and making sure we're shining a light on that. And then I would be remiss if I did not say, in 2024, we actually sold out the game. It was packed, we reached capacity. So the game itself is certainly on the up and up, but I'll stop there.
I love it. I love it. I love that you said having fun. Yes, we can still have fun while we're doing business, right? And it's a great way to do that. The event unto itself is a great event, but I love how you said how the shoulder programming has increased. You're providing opportunities, you're bringing new people into the fold. I would ask, how have you seen this event just evolve in terms of NBA All-Star and the people that are showing up to NBA All-Star over the course of the number of years that you've had it? I'm sure, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
a different environment. You talked about the band, you talked about the students. With that also comes different fans as well. So maybe just
Yes.
give a little snippet of that.
I'll actually share a story. So, you know, we are talking about elevating and giving space and bringing more diverse audiences in. But one thing that really struck me in 2023, we were in Salt Lake City, Utah. The matchup was between Grambling State and Southern University. So Battle of Louisiana. And there were these two young fans there. They were probably no older than 10 years old, 10, 12 at most. And they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know, you know, what an HBC was. I literally was just like, you know how it is when you're working an event, like running back and forth on the sideline working. But I overheard these two young people, and they were like, I didn't even know what an HBCU was. I never heard of Southern, but this is so cool. And so, you know, we were able to bring, and we know there are no HBCUs in Utah. So for me, that was a really great example of, wow, we were able to expose two young people who are from this region who would not, let's be honest, they probably would not have interacted with these student athletes, let alone these major academic institutions. And so for them to witness that and appreciate that, for me, that was like, all right, we're bringing a new type of diverse audience into a space where they typically may not, you know, have been. So like that for me was a really big example of elevating diverse audiences. And then as we think about continuing to reach new audiences, you know, we work hand in hand with the alumni groups of the schools whom are competing. So for example, we're going to be in the Bay in February 2025. Morehouse and Tuskegee have a huge alumni fan base. I say Morehouse, but also Spelman. So Spellhouse has a huge alumni fan base in the Bay. And so that has also been something that we've been very intentional about. How do we partner with the alumni groups in their respective local organizations to continue spreading the word, not just about this game, but now bringing in new fans who may not have tapped into the NBA before this.
Those are great examples. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I love the stories, and congrats again on amazing work.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna shift it over to Misha from Major League Baseball, who's gonna tell us about the game that they had at Rookwood Field earlier this year in Birmingham. Misha, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. And I really have enjoyed listening to everyone's initiative. So thanks for sharing. MLB is always trying to branch out and market our game to all corners of the country, both on and off the field. So Rookwood was a great opportunity for us to, one, honor the Negro Leagues and educate fans on this rich history, but also to engage new diverse fans. And MLB at Rookwood, a tribute to the Negro Leagues, was a 3-day series of events, which included a minor league game between the Birmingham Barons and Montgomery Biscuits, a celebrity softball game that took place on Juneteenth in partnership with Uninterrupted, and included a post-game concert with Metro Boomin and Also a special regular season contest between the St. Louis Cardinals and San Francisco Giants. And what made it truly special and a historic moment for baseball was that we had 58 living Negro League players join us for the celebration, and we had the opportunity to honor them in front of the nation. It was definitely an emotional experience, but also so amazing to see them get their flowers, which was very well deserved. And I had the privilege of helping craft events that really engaged and included the Birmingham community. I want to give a huge shout out to my colleague, Rob Field, who served as the event lead for the project, as well as the incredible efforts of my colleagues and our amazing partners who brought this vision to life. And I, really when we go into an event, it's really to make sure that the event is as accessible and inclusive as possible to the community. And when you're at the league office and you're not based in the community itself, that is the challenge of starting from scratch and building from the ground up. We don't have those existing relationships, and we don't have an MLB club that was based in Alabama. So really trying to find ways of how we engage and being really authentic and true to how we approach our engagement with the Birmingham community was really important. I will say that the opportunity for us with Birmingham's rich history really created a platform to honor the Negro Leagues and engage new diverse fans. And so we did that by really first starting with the engaging the community itself. So we introduced the product to key stakeholders in the community well before the event started. And what's really important in our work is that we want people to know our names and our faces and who we are well before first pitch. And so we're starting early on. We started a year before just introducing the project. And then in February, before the event, we held a community meeting to share more about what was happening. And we invited all of my MLB colleagues to also introduce themselves so that the community knew what our intention was, and then also so that they knew this was coming to build excitement. A lot of the people in Birmingham, this is a college football town. It runs deep. And so really trying to find ways to introduce baseball was a challenge, but at the same time, like there was a history there. And so after we introduced the event, we then started to think of ways that we can add DEI ancillary programming leading up to it, as well as during the event. So one thing that we did was MLB partnered with the San Francisco Giants and the St. Louis Cardinals to host an Alabama HBCU tour. So as important as it is with the game, also what are those off the field moments to engage with diverse audiences as well, and also letting them know that outside the game we care and we want to show our long-term investment. And so like Amber mentioned, how do we engage off the field? We went throughout Alabama. So we went to Huntsville, we went to Montgomery, we went to Birmingham, and we went to 3 HBCUs, but invited the surrounding schools to join. And we talked about the career opportunities that were available at MLB. Especially, I've had the chance to go to many HBCUs and share about MLB opportunities, but when there's not as much access to that, this was really important for a lot of the students to see a professional sports team or league come to their school and let them know that there's a place for them. So we did that. And then afterwards, after the game, both the Cardinals and the Giants and MLB will host a virtual series of how to build a resume, how to interview, how to land a job in sports. So it's something that continues after June. And then another thing we did was also put together a Rickwood Marketing Boot Camp. This was something that we haven't done before, but we figured that this was a great way to engage the students as well. So we put applications out for people to be a part of this boot camp and get a behind the scenes look of how marketing brings their campaigns to life. And then also use this as an opportunity to engage the students to really contribute to what the marketing looks like for this event, people who either live there or are from there. We want to make sure that it was authentic. And for us who are not from there, we didn't want to assume how we should market the event. And so we had 4 students participate from various schools in Alabama, and then we were able to bring them to Alabama for the game. And they were able to be a part of the whole week-long series of events and get a behind-the-scenes look. They also met with so many people, like different celebrities, and got to see things come to life. People that I haven't ever even had the chance of meeting in the baseball world, they did. So it was pretty exciting for them. And then another key thing that when you're thinking about these events is how do you create access, right? Like some of these events, the challenge for Rickwood was that it was an 8,300 seated ballpark. Normally we're working with 40,000 seats in a ballpark. So how do we create that access? We worked with the mayor's office and partnered with them to make sure that 26% of the ballpark, those tickets were given to the community and youth groups at no cost, which was really important for us. And then in addition to that, what are some other programs that we can do outside of Rickwood that will allow people to participate? So creating multiple touch points. We had a documentary screening of Say Hey Willie Mays, where we invited the director, Nelson George, and Michael Mays, Willie Mays' son, for a fireside chat. And we made that free of no cost for people to come join. And it took place at the historic Carver Theater. And then we also had watch parties. So we partnered with 4 Black-owned businesses on that day to host watch parties, and we were making sure that we were giving business to people who are local in the community, and then also creating a space so if people couldn't actually join the event, they were able to participate and watch. And we created surprise and delight experiences where we actually were sending some of those fans to the game for an opportunity to participate. So there are various ways that we engaged, and honestly, it wouldn't have been possible without the relationships that we built in Birmingham. I will say that something that I always keep in mind is that I met someone before where they said an organization made them feel welcomed but not invited. And so in any of the work that I do is always how do we make people feel invited to participate? And that's by including them in our game presentation. It's giving them business. How are we, helping them, be a part of this event? And if they see themselves in it, then they'll want to engage more and amplify the message.
All right. Thanks, Misha. That was awesome to hear about the amount of work that was done down there. It was very layered. I want to pick up on something and move us into the next section of our time here today, which is just group discussion. And maybe you can be the first to answer because you talked about it so much already, was that authenticity piece. When we are trying to engage with new fans, sometimes the fans can see right through that. And so if we're not authentic in our efforts, it sometimes fall flat. But obviously that wasn't the case with you in Major League Baseball. Can you just talk about how it was received, those beginning meetings? You said you talked with the community a whole year before the event. And so just talk about how that was received, some of the early feedback that you got, and maybe these weren't fans before an event like this, and maybe they are after. So maybe just talk about how you saw some new people get pulled in.
Yeah, I think, there isn't an MLB club there, but I think everyone was really excited that MLB was coming to Birmingham. I think what really is important is what happens during the event and after. And so I think there were some people who might have been hesitant, but at the same time, really excited. So I think for us, as far as being authentic, is I went to Birmingham about 10 times leading up to the event, and I really immersed myself in the community. So outside of things MLB, I was showing up to people's event, having dinners, really getting to know the people. And I think what really showed in terms of I knew that it was working as I was at a local food hall in Birmingham where all the business gets done, and people were calling me by name and they were saying, Misha, Misha. And I was like, oh, I'm like an honorary resident of Birmingham at this point. And I think it's really just making sure that you're building those relationships and you're also learning the history of the place that you're going to. We were in a place of the civil rights era where, you know, I made sure that our MLB team, when we had a site visit, we went to the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. We went to the 16th Street Baptist Church, Kelly Ingram Park, so that we knew the history of where we were doing our work instead of just putting on an event. And I think that allowed our group and our team to have that in mind as we were doing anything that we were putting together. So immersing yourself and then investing in the community, showing that you're authentic. A lot of the things that we did were diverse owned businesses who were a part of that, local businesses. The people who worked the event were local as well. And just putting your dollars where your intention is really important.
I love that. And it was well received. The success speaks for itself. So really well done there. Anyone have anything to add on top of that in terms of authenticity, Amber?
Yeah, Misha, what you said in terms of immersing yourself really hits home. So one thing I really pride, or I'm proud of our team for is whenever we identify a school, whenever we decide to partner with a school and they say yes, the first thing that we do is we go to each of the respective institutions' campus and spend time there to make sure we understand, you know, what's the voice of the students, what is the history. You know, when we announced that Morehouse and Tuskegee were going to be the teams competing in 2025, we actually went down to Tuskegee and to Atlanta to make sure we were on campus to spend time with the students, interview them. We got a tour of the campus. And I think exactly what you said in terms of making sure all of your teammates understand the importance of the work that we're doing is key because that's the foundation. And so I had a few colleagues who traveled with me to Tuskegee who had never been to Alabama before, right? And so like for me, like I'm excited for them to learn about this institution, but also personally, my family's from Alabama. And so it's like, you know, you get to see this piece, get to experience your colleagues experiencing history, which will then, you know, only progress the work that you do once you get back in the office. So I think starting with the audience who you want to serve and putting yourself in their environment first and foremost is how you should start any project or initiative in this space.
Well said. All right, our next question for Amani and Mark. You all both talked about meeting these fans where they are. Mark, with your pop-up, your capsule, barbershop-like environment, Amani, your artistry. What can you say about diverse fans and where they are and where we can meet them?
Misha and Amber touched on this, but it goes well beyond just data and studies. It's really important to build relationships with local businesses, entrepreneurs, community leaders, students, educators, you name it. And for us, this has been a really immersive experience with my experience in Creators of Color. It was important to me that I was going out into the community and understanding the broader market with Minnesota being a hub for the Hmong population, Somali population. We have a large Mexican population as well. Finding ways to integrate those backgrounds and those stories into the work that we were doing and educating the creatives that we brought in was really important. And this gives them insight and exposure into how they can integrate it into their content and production experience. And even as we go well beyond things like Creators of Color, each group wants something different. So this could be career opportunities, understanding what's happening in the front office, behind the scenes content, so that they know that there are pathways for success within the sports industry, especially for BIPOC talent. You don't just have to be on the court or the field. You could be leading an organization, and that's really true to the values of the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, and to add to that, when it comes to meeting fans where they're at, and I think of Adrian, the founder of Two Black Guys, and part of it in the collaboration with him was understanding his experience as a Black youth growing up to become a Black man in Toronto. Could never afford to play hockey, but the Toronto Maple Leafs were, one of the teams. They were around, before the Toronto Raptors. The Blue Jays had been around, but Toronto Maple Leafs was sort of the show, and he didn't always have a connection to it, but would watch from afar. And as he grew to become the professional that he is in a completely different environment, it was bringing in part of that element where he's always had this fandom, but it's been a little bit at a distance, and tying some of his creative to, what we as a culture felt is represented with amongst ourselves, but not always able to shine in the particular sport. So he was a great, bridge for us to as well do that. And then the storytelling component of it and the intentionality of making sure it was Black voices on the other side of the camera, asking us the questions and helping us tell the story. I think that allowed us to produce something both in the apparel itself, but also the marketing and the way we try to roll it out to it had such intention of how we were trying to speak to people. And it wasn't a woe is me. It was not. We got to recognize there's excellence amongst us, y'all. Like this is something. This is a time for celebration, and it was very intentional. And credit to Mitchell and Ness, who were the partner with the league, who were the vendor with the league, who were able to do the cut and sew because. Adrian created the creative, and it was RIP. But Mitchell and Ness were the ones for the week of All-Star who wanted to have that that urban connected feel to its apparel, and chose a location of a barbershop that offered a good size to host and a retail space in it. And when it comes to Black community, the importance of the barbershop, the importance for Black community when it comes to just our hair and our expression through that, and the history behind some of it. It was very much intentional, and to be able to engage before the pop-up and before the actual adult party happened, to have the youth there. And again, I touched on it, but the hockey hair is such a big thing in culture, but I never had hockey hair. My hair went up. It never went like down, float out of the back of my helmet. Maybe it would now, but being able to see these diverse, these young Black, 13, 14-year-old elite hockey players express themselves in something that was a shop, meeting alum who looked like them, and being able, whether it was through designing something themselves, cleaning their sneaks, or getting their hair done, that was very intentional, because those are areas of our just daily life in our community where you can just commune with your community and you can be in your most comfortable environment at times. So it was all of those elements, from Adrian's stories of not being able to afford hockey but playing foot hockey in recess as a kid, pretending he was Daryl Sittler, a legendary Hall of Famer with the Maple Leafs, to these kids being in this venue of a barbershop with us, was hoping that the targeted audience and beyond that would understand the intentionality we had behind the voices and how we tried to roll everything out to say, you might not have seen or felt it before, but please believe, like, you belong in this sport, you belong in this space, and we want you to be able to see yourself through this garment.
Mark, you mentioned something that I had already wanted to talk about, was the importance of collaboration and finding the right partner. You talked about Mitchell and Ness. Misha earlier talked about Uninterrupted. And you've all talked about the amazing partners that you've had. If any of you could answer just the importance of finding the right partners in terms of collaboration and getting this done, but then also internally, the amount of effort it takes across all of these different departments to get this work done, because we've talked about it multiple times of just how complex these things are and the amount of layers that you have built into each of them.
I can just add quickly to that. There's obviously it's important, and you can expand and reach even further and accomplish more and do more with appropriate and aligned partnerships. And you know, in our space in hockey, there's a lot of folks in the last 4 years are starting to become, you know, really cementing themselves in which community or cause they really want to be social advocates for. But it's not so much to just, you know, for whatever it is, if it's empowering the development of youth girls in sport, or the 2S LGBTQ plus community, or BIPOC and racialized communities, to not just have this idea that you want to do it for them. And yes, there's benefit of targeting new audience for the growth of revenue, but to make sure you're doing it with the community, I think is important, and to have a partner who understands that as well. So it's not just a checkbox. It's really, again, back to the intentionality of the last question. It's a partner who sees and values the same reasons you're doing it, I think is incredibly important. And then internally, Justin, is no different. You know, MLSE and Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment represents 4 different teams across 4 leagues with feeder and farm team systems and a live concert section. Like, we're massive. And understandably, everyone's kind of got a different book of business or a priority at a different time, but you have to be able to understand the purpose behind what you're doing. And then I call them lieutenants, but try to find the folks around who are like, it doesn't matter what's on my plate right now. Like, I want to see this team brand doing X in community, because sport has such a powerful platform and we need to be able to leverage it. It's not just bringing cities and people together because of championships and wins. It's doing so because we're willing to replicate what some athletes and some leaders are willing to do and say when it comes to reaching an audience, to say, we are here for you, we see you, and we need you. It was mentioned earlier, not just to feel welcomed, but to feel invited and included. So it's important to be able to find the internal and external partners to help you champion those messages.
Yeah, and just to echo, Mark, everything that you said is 100% true. And I think for us, like, you need to have people who are bought in and are committed to the same thing that you are. Otherwise, it's going to be challenging. And thankfully for us, when it came to Rickwood Field, all of our partners, from our production partner BAM to Populous to Canopy, Fox, and our sponsors and Uninterrupted, everyone wanted to just do the right thing and to make sure that we were including everybody. And so that's really important when you're looking for a partner. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. But for us, it was really easy, because even just from the design to people did their research, they did, you know, everything that they could to make sure that this event was inclusive and authentic. We couldn't have done it without our partners, and same collaboratively. I think what's really important is to have support from the top down, and it really makes it easy to do your work when the commissioner is supportive of it, and we had full support of him to move forward and make sure that everything that we were doing was inclusive to everyone.
All right, so I'm going to head us to the wrap up question, which of course is the future. How does this continue to evolve over the next couple of years? Where do you see diverse fan engagement going? You all have been at the center of this work. You've already told us a little bit about what's been done this year.
Whether you want to call it multicultural, inclusive, or growth audience marketing, developing a clear strategy that focuses on engaging and amplifying diverse voices and giving them a platform and visibility within your brand is crucial. This can be done through expanding local partnerships, introducing grassroots developments, or really leaning into branding and storytelling, but finding a way to let voices be heard is the future of where this is going.
I love that.
Thank you,
Amber?
Jonathan. I mean, finding ways to continue organically integrating this platform into our overall NBA business is really something that I'm looking forward to, and I think is the vision for the HBCU game and all the corresponding elements. So what do I mean by that? We have a program where some of the students who have participated, either they've directly participated in the HBCU Classic, or they may be students from participating schools, they actually serve as broadcasters and help call some of our NBA games throughout the season. And so, we're bringing in broadcast journalism majors to get real experience alongside some of their heroes, right, in this vocation. And that's something that is really important to the future, working with vendors, right, who are from or alumni or current students of the respective institutions that we're working with. And then also continuing to find ways to organically tell the stories of how these partners whom we're working with also amplify what we're doing on the NBA side. So, for example, I also lead all of our MLK Day work, our MLK and Black History Month work for the league. And so this year, or January 2025, I'm going to be acutely focused on telling the Morehouse story alongside Dr. King's story, right? And the impact that Dr. King, as obviously an alum of Morehouse, has had not just on this country, but the world, right? And then so many players in the league as well. So finding those like authentic, organic synergies that can really just help tell the story of the larger HBCU culture, but also the NBA experience. So those are some of the things as we look forward.
Great insight. Thank you, Amber. Mark, Misha?
I think for MLB, we're just extremely committed to growing the game and bringing the brand and the game all across the country. And so we have departments that are hosting clinics all across the country, trying to, build a new set of diverse ball players as well. I know we talk about fans, but even when we're thinking of ball players, we have a really great group called MLB Develops that provides reach and goes to different places to try and attract talent and make sure that they continue to, learn the game so that they can play in the big leagues. And so we're really looking forward to seeing what's next for us in that space on the field.
Thanks, Misha. And Mark?
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with it for a second and say I think there's I hope in the future it's the work is going to continue, and I say that because there was significant appetite for this in 2020, and there is significant appetite for it perhaps 2021, but that's long in the rear view now. And it's been mentioned here by all the other panelists, and I think Amani might have recently said it, but when working with the vendors and the different partners, whether it's through storytelling, whether it's through career development and providing opportunities for students and graduates and the next generation of these diverse fans to also be able to find a place within the sport, not just as a youth participation level, but from career opportunities and partnerships as well, because the work is far from being done when it comes to embracing new demographics, letting new demographics see themselves fully in the game in ways that perhaps this hasn't been the case in the past. I'm not saying this to suggest that there hasn't been amazing things to be done, and there is, and like other professional leagues in the women's sport that we're seeing. The hockey had just last year and now just beginning its second professional season of PWHL. It's phenomenal, and the talent of these athletes is incredible, and it's well deserved that they are being celebrated and lifted and supported. It's about time, but it doesn't mean that the job is done by any means either. And so I say I hope in the future it just continues, because it hasn't been an easy journey to get to the point where folks are thinking from perspectives beyond their own. And I certainly represent an institution here on this call that hasn't had a lot of diversity of thought. So I believe it's important to continue to, from whether it's external partnerships, sport, youth development, or career opportunities as well, to be able to be a pipeline or a funnel for folks who aren't the prototypical sport person or hockey person to see themselves and to see opportunity for this institution, team, league, game, to be able to invest in them. I think is crucial. because with that, it'll help continue the appetite and the drive to bring our teams, our sports leagues, and our brands into new demographics and new areas of fandom that has never been reached before.
Well, I want to say thanks to you all, not only for being here today and sharing your incredible work, but also for the work that you do to continue to make sports more inclusive in your respective sports and your respective leagues with your teams. You really are leaders in the true sense. And our goal here today was to shed some light on the joy and where this work is thriving in our industry. And through you all, it certainly is. So thank you again. Thank you to Sports Business Journal, and thank you to everyone joining us. We'll see you next time.